I got him to produce the Eagles.
Well,
they were produced by, this is before I was in the band, but they were produced by Glyn Johns.
At 77, Joe Walsh finally confirms the truth about Don Henley. What if one of the Eagles' biggest hits was almost never recorded? For years, fans have whispered about what really went on behind the studio doors, creative clashes, simmering egos, and the complicated, sometimes combustible friendship between Joe Walsh and Don Henley. Now, at 77, Joe Walsh is finally opening up, and what he reveals about Don Henley flips everything you thought you knew about the Eagles on its head. This isn't just a story about music, it's about conflict, loyalty, and an unlikely bond that shaped one of rock's most legendary bands. So what really happened between them? Let's find out. It was 1975. Joe Walsh walked into the Eagles studio carrying a guitar riff so explosive it felt like a car tearing down the highway. Every note screamed energy, rebellion, and raw rock and roll. That riff would eventually become Life in the Fast Lane, a track that would define Hotel California and the band itself. But here's the part most fans have never heard. Don Henley didn't want the song, not at first. In a 2013 Rolling Stone interview, Walsh recalled the moment vividly. He played the riff to Henley, waiting for a reaction. Henley stared for a long, tense beat, then said, "That's too wild, Joe. It doesn't fit the Eagles' style." What followed were weeks of creative tension, Walsh pushing for a sound that was raw, untamed, electric, while Henley searched for purpose, for meaning, for a story hidden behind the chaos. And yet, in that friction, something extraordinary was born. Walsh brought the fire, the reckless energy that could ignite a stadium. Henley brought the narrative, the voice that could turn a song into a story that resonated across generations. Together, they transformed clashing visions into a masterpiece, a song that didn't just capture the spirit of the 1970s, but came to define the Eagles themselves. Ever wonder how a single guitar riff revealed the hidden tensions, raw genius, and unbreakable loyalty at the heart of the Eagles? It all began with a moment that nearly triggered a full-blown creative meltdown. Glenn Frey, the band's co-founder, its peacemaker, and often the invisible glue holding it together, stepped in as sparks flew between Joe Walsh and Don Henley. Walsh later remembered Frey leaning forward, eyes serious, saying, "This riff is gold. Joe's got something special. Let him run with it. Then you weave your magic around it." Those words shattered the stalemate. Henley finally relented, shifting his focus to crafting lyrics pulled straight from the chaos of the Eagles' 1970s world. Late-night parties, fame that burned too bright, and the kind of reckless energy that could destroy or immortalize a band. What came next was pure electricity. Walsh's guitar roared, Henley's vocals cut through like sharpened glass. Together, they forged a sound that instantly felt like the classic Eagles, timeless, unforgettable, yet born from tension. Drama, however, was never far behind. Years later, in a 2016 SiriusXM interview, Walsh revealed that Henley eventually asked Walsh to soften the solo. Walsh didn't resist, yet he slipped in a few rebellious notes anyway. The audience erupted. That tiny act of defiance perfectly captured the essence of their relationship. Fiery, creative, sometimes combative, but capable of producing hits that defined a generation. Then, the story took a darker turn. By the early 1990s, Walsh was spiraling. Alcohol and drugs had taken over, dragging the Eagles' guitar genius into a place where music, the stage, and even his closest friends felt like distant memories. His life was unraveling. And the person who stepped in to save him was not who fans might have expected. Don Henley, the same perfectionist who once clashed with Walsh about every note, refused to let him disappear. In a 2017 Washington Post interview, Walsh admitted, "Don and Glenn Frey saved me. Without them, I wouldn't be here today." In 1994, as the Eagles prepared for their legendary Hell Freezes Over reunion, Henley and Frey delivered a blunt ultimatum, forcing Walsh to make a choice: the band or the addiction that threatened to destroy him. Walsh says it's a moment etched in memory. In History of the Eagles 2013, he recalled Henley looking him dead in the eye. "Joe, either you get sober or there's no place for you in the Eagles. No negotiations, no exceptions." Henley didn't stop at words. He personally drove Walsh to a rehab center in Arizona. No cameras, no headlines, just a friend refusing to let another friend fall apart. The following months were grueling. Recovery was slow, demanding, and often lonely. Yet Henley stayed in constant contact. In a 2016 CBS interview, Walsh said, "Don called me every week, asked how I was doing, but always reminded me, you have to do this yourself." It was tough love, unyielding, uncomfortable, but exactly what Walsh needed as the shadow of relapse loomed. When Walsh finally completed the program, Henley's support came full circle. Waiting for him was a brand new Fender Telecaster and a handwritten note. "Welcome back, Joe. Now go play like yourself." Walsh admitted, "I cried when I read that. Don doesn't say much, but his actions speak volumes." This wasn't just a comeback. It revealed a side of Don Henley fans rarely saw, the human side. Glenn Frey once explained it best. "Don's tough because he cares. He wasn't going to let Joe destroy himself." For Walsh, that support became a bond deeper than music, fame, or legend, a bond forged in crisis and loyalty. Then came January 18th, 2016. Glenn Frey, the spark, the heartbeat, the driving force of the Eagles, passed away. His loss left a permanent wound in the band's soul. Henley, Frey's closest friend and creative partner, carried his grief privately, though those closest to him said the pain ran deeper than anyone imagined. Behind the fame, the decades of music, there was a moment so raw that Walsh says he'll never forget it. In a 2018 Billboard interview, Walsh revealed a side of Henley fans had never seen, completely unguarded. "I had never seen Don that fragile. He was sitting alone in the studio listening to Desperado, red-eyed, like he was saying goodbye to Glenn. It was heartbreaking. Henley, the rock-solid center of the Eagles, quietly unraveling under the weight of losing the friend and partner with whom he had built an empire." In the weeks after the funeral, Henley's grief turned into conviction. In a private meeting at his Los Angeles home, he looked at Joe Walsh and Timothy B. Schmidt and said, "Without Glenn, the Eagles are just an empty shell." He wasn't interested in fame. He didn't care about money. For Henley, it was simple. No Glenn, no Eagles. That was the loyalty forged through classics like Hotel California and New Kid in Town, songs born from decades of brotherhood. But Walsh and Schmidt weren't ready to let the band's legacy die. They approached Henley gently, offering a path forward, one that honored Glenn instead of replacing him. They suggested bringing Glenn's son, Deacon, into the band. In the updated 2016 History of the Eagles, Walsh recalled telling Henley, "Glenn would want us to keep going, and Deacon, he's the way to honor him." Henley didn't answer immediately. He just sat there, silent, wrestling with the weight of a decision that could either preserve the band or end it forever. Then, slowly, he nodded. That choice didn't get any easier when the moment of truth arrived. Hours before their first show with Deacon at Classic West in 2017, Walsh remembered Henley pulling him aside backstage. "Joe, we have to do this for Glenn. We can't mess up." As he later shared on CBS Sunday Morning, Henley poured every ounce of himself into it. Sound, lighting, staging, determined that Glenn Frey's legacy would be honored with absolute perfection. And from that night on, the Eagles didn't just continue. They carried Glenn with them. Every song, every show, every moment. For years, fans only saw Don Henley's precision, his discipline, his perfectionism. But behind the scenes, something far deeper was pushing him forward. Henley's dedication didn't just preserve the Eagles, it transformed their performances into living, breathing tributes. Timothy B. Schmidt revealed in 2017, Don brings his pain into the music, and you can hear it. When Henley sings Peaceful, Easy Feeling, every note becomes a quiet promise, every harmony a memorial to the friend who had once held their world together. But before the tributes came the breaking point. In 1980, the Eagles were a powder keg. Years of creative tension, personal battles, and clashing egos had built up, and Joe Walsh, with his wild, unpredictable energy, suddenly became the spark that set everything off. The explosion happened at the infamous Long Night in Long Beach concert in California. Arguments erupted on stage in front of thousands. Walsh recalled the chaos in the 2013 documentary History of the Eagles. Don and Glenn Frey were arguing right on stage, nearly came to blows. I was drunk and cracked a few stupid jokes which only made things worse. Henley, desperate to keep the band from imploding, shot Walsh a look filled with fury, one the guitarist says he'll never forget. Backstage, things only intensified. Henley confronted Walsh, accusing him of stirring the pot, of sabotaging the band, of making reckless comments to reporters that fed the growing fire. Walsh didn't deny it. He later admitted in a 2016 Rolling Stone interview, "I was drunk a lot, saying random things to journalists about what was going on inside the Eagles." Walsh summed up that era in one painful sentence. "We were like a family going through a divorce." And in many ways they were. Fractured, volatile, and desperately trying to hold on to something that already felt like it was slipping away. Behind the Eagles' polished harmonies and legendary success, a storm was brewing, one that revealed just how fragile the band really was. Henley, fiercely protective of the band's legacy, later admitted in History of the Eagles, "Joe wasn't malicious, but his lack of control made it nearly impossible for us to keep going." It was a blunt confession, and yet Walsh never fired back. Instead, he defended Henley. He knew the weight the drummer carried. In a 2017 SiriusXM interview, Walsh revealed just how heavy it was. Don carried the heaviest load. He was writing, singing, and trying to keep us from falling apart. I understand why he got mad. Even after the Eagles split, Henley kept reaching out. Quiet phone calls, check-ins, nothing about the band. Walsh said, "Don didn't say it out loud, but I knew he still cared about me." The chaos of that era exposed their opposite natures. Henley, the controlled perfectionist. Walsh, the spontaneous free spirit. Clashing forces that somehow, over time, made reconciliation possible. Timothy B. Schmidt summed it up perfectly in a 2016 Billboard interview. Henley was hard on Walsh because he cared. The arguments were real, but so was the respect beneath them. And then came the rumors, the kind only rock legends attract. Both Walsh and Henley had past relationships with Stevie Nicks, sparking years of speculation about a hidden rivalry. Walsh finally addressed it in a 2019 classic rock interview, saying, "I started dating Stevie in 1983, long after she and Don had broken up. I didn't steal Stevie from Don. People just like to exaggerate." Henley rarely spoke about Nicks, even around close friends, but those who knew him felt the truth. Schmidt reportedly said Henley was deeply heartbroken when that relationship ended in the late 1970s, another quiet wound behind the man who seemed so in control. For decades, fans have wondered what really went on behind the scenes of the Eagles. The truth? Don Henley wasn't just the band's lead vocalist, he was the quiet force keeping chaos in check. On the 2018 Howard Stern show, Joe Walsh revealed just how much Henley's discipline shaped the band. But Tim said Don had a tough time, especially when Stevie got pregnant and decided not to keep the baby, Walsh admitted. Despite the drama swirling around them, Henley never overshared, earning Walsh's deep respect. Even on the road, Henley's focus was unshakable. In 1984, Walsh invited his girlfriend, Nicks, to an Eagles concert in Los Angeles. Henley wasn't thrilled. "Don pulled me aside and said, 'Joe, don't complicate things. Focus on the show,'" Walsh remembered. The moment captured the stark contrast between Walsh's free-spirited energy and Henley's precise, controlled approach. As Glenn Frey noted in History of the Eagles 2013, Don doesn't like personal drama getting in the way of business. Joe's the opposite. He lives like it's a party. Yet, there was no bitterness between them. Walsh confirmed, "Don and I never fought about Stevie. Relationships are private, and we respected that." Beyond his role as frontman, Henley was the Eagles' architect. His perfectionism in songwriting and production gave the band its emotional depth. Walsh recalled in a 2019 SiriusXM interview how Henley would spend hours tweaking a single chorus, fine-tuning a word until it carried the right feeling. "Heartache Tonight" being a perfect example. Walsh said, "Without Don, the song would have been just another rock track." Henley's dedication didn't stop in the studio. After the band's 1980 breakup, he famously turned down lucrative reunion offers, insisting the Eagles were about art, not money. His meticulous standards extended to live shows, shaping performances that would cement the Eagles as a timeless musical legend. Simply put, Don Henley wasn't just singing, he was safeguarding a legacy. What was it like when perfection collided with chaos? Joe Walsh remembers it vividly. In 2008, rehearsals for Lion Eyes were grueling. Don demanded the band run the song over and over until every harmony was flawless. "Don sets the bar," Don Felder later reflected. "Every note, every nuance was scrutinized. His standards are uncompromising." But Henley's intensity didn't go unchecked. Walsh's humor and spontaneity brought balance. During a 2001 rehearsal, Walsh deliberately slipped in a playful riff from Sweet Home Alabama just to lighten the mood. Everyone erupted in laughter. Everyone except Henley, who glared but betrayed the tiniest twitch at the corner of his mouth. "That was my win," Walsh recalled in 2017. Those moments perfectly captured the band's creative tension, a disciplined control meeting wild creativity, a tension that defined their legendary sound. Now in their late 70s, Walsh and Henley continue to leave an indelible mark on music. Walsh, sober since 1994, has rebuilt his life with purpose and stability. He lives in Los Angeles with his wife, Marjorie Bach, whom he married in 2008, and still tours with the Eagles, though their schedule is carefully tailored to protect his health. Beyond the band, he lends his guitar to other artists, pursues amateur radio, station WB6ACU has been his since age 12, and dedicates himself to Vets Aid, helping homeless veterans. Henley, on the other hand, enjoys a quieter life in Dallas with his wife, Sharon Summerall, and their 3 grown children. Married in 1995, he is focused on music, social causes, and preserving the Eagles' legacy. He occasionally performs solo, including material from his 2015 album Cass County, and engages in philanthropic and environmental efforts, such as the Walden Woods Project, which protects historic land and supports music education. The story of Don Henley and Joe Walsh goes far beyond music. It's a story about a delicate, almost magical balance between discipline and freedom, structure and spontaneity, rigor and playfulness. It's this intricate dance that helped forge one of the most enduring legacies in rock history. For decades, fans have speculated about what really lies beneath the Eagles' legendary harmonies. Behind the iconic hits, the soaring vocals, and the blistering guitar solos, there's a world of tension, loyalty, and bonds so strong they sometimes teetered on the edge of breaking. Even as each member chased their own paths, Don Henley has remained deeply intertwined with the surviving Eagles, especially Timothy B. Schmidt. Every time he steps on stage, every tribute he pays to Glenn Frey, he keeps the spirit of the band alive, an invisible thread connecting the past to the present for fans around the globe. Then there's Don Walsh, whose explosive riffs and fearless creativity brought fire to the Eagles' sound, but also moments of challenge and confrontation. Their relationship has been a masterclass in contrast. Intense creative clashes balanced with moments of laughter, camaraderie, and personal redemption. Walsh has lifted the veil, offering rare glimpses into a side of Henley few have seen. A man of meticulous discipline, unwavering loyalty, and a steadfast commitment to the people he calls family. Together, Henley and Walsh show us that rock legends are never defined solely by the songs they write or the solos they shred. They're measured by the passion they pour into each note, the forgiveness they extend, and the lifelong bonds they nurture. The story of the Eagles isn't just a chronicle of music. It's a story of friendship tested and strengthened over decades, of resilience in the face of pressure, and of the enduring, unbreakable power of human connection. Every harmony, every riff, every performance carries a testament not just to talent, but to the heart behind it.